Welcome to another video tutorial. On this particular tutorial we're going to be looking at converting a prospect into a client, having effectively placed the business and basically adding those documents to the file itself and invoicing, etc., and basically just bringing it completely up to date to the point then when you just need to either collect the money or put it onto finance. So this one follows on from the video I made concerning adding a prospect to send a quotation out, so it will be effectively the same client that will be moving over. So in that video we went from adding basically having put a quotation together, setting the record up on the system, and putting documentation on and sending that quotation out to the prospect. So basically where we are now is you've been fortunate enough for the client to say, yep, let's have some of that, let's go ahead. So the first thing you will do is go back into the system that you originally quoted it on and actually put it on cover. Alternatively, if it was a manual quote, you need to go back into that particular email quote and respond to the insurer and attach that email into the prospect file. But in this particular instance we were using Allianz, so we will make the assumption that you have gone back in and basically hit go on cover and you've been issued with the documentation. And again, in the same way, that documentation should be sitting in your My Documents folder ready for us to start adding things to the file. So the first thing we need to do is effectively move the whole file from prospects to customers. So if you right click, which I've done there, and you go to move client, what will happen is you will bring up a screen which you can see there. It will ask you what things you want to move. So basically we won't untick any of that information. It will ask use defaults for new policies, which we continue to tick, but also you'll notice there you can assign a new customer number. So for whatever reason, if you put in a prospect that wasn't really satisfactory in terms of how you wanted to code it up, you can go back and change it. Alternatively, if you do click on it and press OK, it will bring up a list of the existing customers on there. So again, it might be something you want to attach to an existing file because it might be connected in some way. Alternatively, it may be that the code is incompatible with one that's on customers, because on rare occasions some people have gone into customers directly from setting up a file rather than going through prospects. So it means there will be a conflict on that, in which case I would always urge you, before you move anything over to prospects, have a look at customers and just make sure that the code you're using on prospects isn't in conflict with one that's already in customers. If so, then just change it a number forward. And that will work adequately. So if we press so in this particular instance we don't want to change anything, and I've been in and checked that there's no conflict with the TAM code. So if I press OK, it will then say that basically it's moving stuff over, and that was successful. So if we now go into customers, we can see there that Mr. Test Limited has now appeared. So what we want to do now is actually start building the file into a larger, sort of more comprehensive format, so we can start invoicing it. So you'll see there, to start with, information that we put in on the previous policy screen has been carried over. So the first thing to do is you will want to actually start filling some of this information in. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to put a policy number in there, and but what you can quite happily do, and what the system will let you, is you can actually open up PDFs highlight the policy number within the PDF, copy and actually paste that into there, so you don't have to sit there writing it all out again. You will then need to put in the insurer. Well, you've got I insurer and B insurer, right? To explain what those are, the I insurer effectively means issuing insurer, so that is effectively the insurance company that underwrites it, so that will appear on some of the documentation that you will issue. The B insurer is the billing insurer, so that is where you have actually placed the policy through, because that takes precedent over the accounts reconciliation system. So for an example, if this particular policy we've done it through Allianz, and it's through Allianz directly, should I say. So in both cases we can classify that insurance company as both the issuing and billing insurer. But if for instance we did a policy through MBS, who we know to be a wholesaling market, same for Holman's, Kerry London, Camford Law, all those kinds of marketplaces, you will have a different issuing insurer and a different billing insurer. So if it, for instance, if it was NBS, it would maybe through the Liverpool Victoria, but the billing insurer would become MBS. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just pop these back to Allianz. Okay. The next point is we need to now add the commission percentage. So I know we don't have them set up as default. It's something that I will go in and deal with, but to be honest with you, defaulting is not necessarily a good idea, because it promotes people not actually knowing what they're supposed to be getting and what they're supposed and really what deal they've actually negotiated. So I would prefer people just to go in and put in a percentage. If you double click this percentage, you can swap it to a flat fee. So if you're unaware of the commission percentage, but you know it was say £120, you could instead put the £120 there and it will work in the same way. But I would always urge everyone to be putting in commission percentages. Okay, and then we just tap. Okay, so I just need to now know what my premium was. So I'm just going to go back to the document. Okay, and it was 126 and 12 pence. So all we're adding in this particular box is the premium, excluding any insurance premium tax and any underwriting fees that may apply. We said we all that kind of additional costings we add into the transactional side of it. This is merely so the system can identify how much commission is due based on the percentage, based on the excluded IPT figure. So we've completed this. Just one note is there is a producer section, so if you do have introducers, they can be set up on here and you can allocate them an amount of money, and that would then be printed in a report when you actually receive money, so you can see quite quickly how much you need to pay them rather than having to do it on a manual basis. So if we press OK, advise record. Okay. So the next thing we need to do, well, you can take them in either order actually. I just want to attach, so we're going to attachments. I just want to attach the policy schedule. So again, go into browse. It's generally the bottom one. Will have your name on it. My documents. Highlight my documents. Press OK, and it will bring up everything. So we've got Mr. Test. There we go. And we just click it over and press next. So again, in the same way, and this becomes very, very repetitive, you allocate it to its particular policy. You can set it to all settings if you wish, if you've got multiple to do. And we'll just put schedule 2000. Just 17. Press attach. We want the activity as no. Press OK. Add activity yes, and it will tell you it's been attached, and you can see it's appeared there. Okay, so again, I've just put one document on here. You can have multiple. You could have employers' liability certificates, public liability certificates, motor, you name it. You add all of that information here. Okay, so the final thing we need to do in terms of setting it up is actually transact it. So it's a two-fold process, unfortunately, at the moment, but I am looking at doing upgrades, and there is a completely separate video tutorial on invoicing in its own right, where not only will we look at all the codings, but we'll look at other transactional features such as journaling and contouring, in order to basically balance your accounts. Okay, so if we press add and add a transaction, okay, you will see there are multiple different transactions that we can add. The only one you will need to use is general transactions. This will put everything on a cash basis. But issues surrounding finance is done afterwards, and also if you are doing debit card payments, etc., then they are done through another feature on the system after you've basically raised the initial transactions. So let's press OK, and if we go, so what we're greeted here is, we don't really want to touch anything, but what you really need to make sure is your effective date and due date are basically in the right year, because what will happen is if you have not put your renewal dates correctly, it will pull incorrect dates through here, which means it will make it very difficult to pay accounts. Whilst you can then allocate money on them, if they're set into the future, the system will not identify them until that future date has actually you're actually at that future date, which means there's a whole process of reversing, which is very complicated. So what I would say is make sure that your effective date and your due date basically match to the renewal date, or the inception date that you are working with. Also, you'll notice again the accounting month, which I mentioned in a previous video, has come up basically to the current transacting month. Okay, so again we can just double click, and again on another video I'll go through what which codes we use and how to use them. So if we press, but basically what we want to do is press new, and I've just tabbed across there, and you notice it's drawn the commission, sorry, not the commission, the premium, XIPT premium straight over. Tax is added afterwards, but if there's any other transactions such as insurer underwriting fees or broker fees, we have to put them on now. So in my letter I put on there was a £25 broker fee. So again, we've not done anything with the tax yet, that comes afterwards, so don't panic that there's no tax in there. So if we press OK, and it's asking if we want to add these transactions, what you will need to do is bring up your document just to make sure, because there is always going to be issues in relation to rounding up and rounding down of percentages, even with the most sophisticated systems. It will still go wrong. You'll notice here, for instance, the tax has been pulled through actually on the wrong. No, tell a lie. What's actually happened there is I've put through the incorrect gross figure. The actual correct gross figure was 19648. So this is a good learning curve here. But what we can do, there's two options. I can either cancel out of this, go back, correct the figure in the policy screen box, and then do this process again, or because I've got the inclusive IPT figure, I've got 3 boxes here. One says do not tax premium, one says tax separate from premium, which basically means add IPT on. The other one says tax included in premium. So if I was to click that, all of a sudden it's changed the overall figure to balance it out. So what it's actually done is it's actually rounded it in a different way, but the total figure is the same. Now this can make slight issues in relation to your to the reconciliations, and if you see things like that, I would probably urge you to go back and just correct it. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go through with it just for the purposes of the demonstration. So if we press OK, and I've got an admin fee here again, which in those boxes you would be able to change, but you can't change any of the descriptions here. But with any kinds of fees, we don't put any insurance tax on, so we press OK. And there you can see there, I'll open that up. You can see that there are now 3 transactions been put through. One for the actual premium itself, one for the insurance premium tax, and one for the broker fee. The other thing you'll notice, so you can see then that it tells you what kind of policy it's under. So we know it's a property owners. We know that the billing and issuing insurer is with Allianz. We can see there what the effective date was. The A basically relates to the billing mode. The only changes to that you will see, and I'll do this on a different video, is if you are billing under a insurer where you're using their own direct debit facilities, so not finance but actually their own direct debit. For instance, Allianz would do that, AXA would do that, RSA would do that, because there may be legitimate reasons you want to do that, and what you'll be doing then is changing that structure so that then the reconciliation will simply just pick up the commission, because that's how you're going to be paid, is that the insurers will give you the money back. These other transactions are on a cash basis. In other words, we are collecting the money ourselves and we are then distributing that back to the insurance company during a reconciliation process. So I list the item numbers because we use those for insurance, for invoice identification sort of markers. So if someone sends us some money, we can go back and find that on a production report, so we know who's that money belonged to. And you can see there's amount and balance. Basically what that is telling us is that these amounts are what is actually been billed, but there's also that amount has yet to be paid by the client. If we were looking at this from a perspective of having, what's the word, basically insurance, the client having paid, then these would be zeroed down. So the last job then we need to do is actually translate that back to the client to basically enable them to pay. So if we go into attachments, letters and form letters, you will find there your own custom template, but we still need to do a little bit of work on it. So I mentioned that, so what we want to do is just go back into invoices here. Okay, so I mentioned that we apply the item numbers as the invoice numbers. So, and what I would do is I would do it in, I would do the first and then the last, just to make life simple. So the date of issue, put it down as the 17th. Okay, just need to add some rows just in case there's not enough. So the effective date, 17th of January 2017, and again you could either write that multiple times, or you can copy paste it, etc. And I just copy what we've got here, but again you can but the point is with this is the clarity of what the invoice has to show. In other words, the breakdown of how it's been calculated. What is not acceptable to either ourselves or the FCA is a basically, you know, Tipex type scenario where fees have been hidden within the body of the premium. You know, that's just not acceptable. Okay. Now for the total, we can sit and add that up, but I just wanted to show you. If you click on the policies, it will give you a balance. It will add it all up for you of what's outstanding. So given that all of it's outstanding, that will be the correct total. So if we go to File and Print, alright, so what I've done accidentally there is I actually clicked on the X to close it, which will then go into the save mode. So that's fine. We can do two things at once here. It's not going to cause too many problems. So I've just put Invoice 2017. Again, you can mark it down as whatever you like, as long as it's clear to you and to other people that use the system. Again, activity, click no. Okay, for the invoice, I would probably make it slightly more descriptive. Put on there property owners or whatever you want. And again, it will fire that up. So you can see then we've got the policy document on there. We've got a copy of the invoice. Again, if you wanted to put your PDF version on there, that's perfectly acceptable. It's not really required in the sense of you can relaunch this invoice and make a PDF out of it should you want to. It's not a problem in that sense. So all we need to do now is very much like when we quoted, is send this out. So in your signatures you will have a send policy documentation, which again pre-populated. So let's put property owners. Again, if you want to create a hold covered letter or something as well, there are templates for us to be able to do that. Again, it's entirely up to you. I'm merely showing you my repetitive method and what I would expect to see on a file as a minimum. Okay. So all I'm going to add here, there is no employee's liability certificate, and we'd already sent out the policy wording previously, but you can reattach it if you want to be on the safe side. Okay, so I've got the invoice and the policy schedule, and again just a very brief statement in relation to that needs to be paid for and for them to check it, etc., etc. So if we just send that over to the client, it goes, and then the same process. We just need the audit trail for it. We need to be able to prove that we have sent everything over to the client. So if we go into sent items, So it was in the add and attach email, by the way. Press OK. There we go. Again, attach it to that particular policy. Email. So email to client. Send policy documentation. Okay. Again, it'll bring up an activity box. Click no. Press OK. Press yes. Okay. There we go. So, in a very short space of time, we have effectively put something on cover, invoiced it, taken the documentation and sent everything out. Now, from a point of view of an account handler, account executive, whoever's using this system, this is that file complete in relation then to actually then basically getting the money in. What I would say is, if you're looking to then put something onto finance, you need to speak to our accounts department straight away, because what will happen is every Monday you will be getting a report showing outstanding monies. If it's still outstanding on a cash basis and hasn't been put onto finance by our accounts department, then that money will show outstanding and you will need to go and collect it, and you will not get your commissions until that money's been settled. Okay, so that's pretty much it. By all means, you can add extra to it. You can flesh out the process in whatever means you want, but as a minimum, this will have everything you will need to have on the file in order to get through the file audit process. So again, any issues or queries, speak to ourselves. There's always extra bits that need to be added into these kinds of processes, but beyond what you see, this should serve you well on 99% of cases that you work with.